You're listening to Left Up the Valley 2.0, Atheist, Skeptic, and Humanist Radio.
Hi, this is Ian Harris, and I took a left at the valley.
Fantastic.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from Restless PC, agitated Florida, fidgety Minnesota, this is Left of the Valley 2.0. My name is Kevin, and I was just called hot. Actually, I was called a big hot mess, but I'm focusing on the positives.
That's good.
Joining me as usual is the team. Really impressed by all those who got an emergency PhD in epidemiology, but in 2020, but earned a master's in Russian international relations studies all of a sudden. Looking at you, Fox News.
Nice.
She got in touch with her inner child. Little shit bit her. Sabrina.
Hi. It fucking hurt too, you know.
You brought a book called How to Scam People Online. Still hasn't arrived. Brett Lee.
I know, right? It's like, this keeps happening.
Number.
And she realized Christianity is just one big daddy kink. Hertzy.
Hey, I don't kink shame.
Don't why.
Get on your knees and forgive me, daddy, for I haven't been a bad girl.
I'm sorry.
Welcome back.
Not my kink.
And
Wow,
it's brought
yeah.
to you by our patron, the Right to Read podcast, who is so awesome they can squeeze orange juice out of a lemon. You too can help by going to patreon.com/LATV and help grow the show. Guys, welcome back. So this week we'll be talking to David Fitzgerald, a returning champion, about the history of Mormonism, but that's in the second half of the show. But first, let's do our usual chit chat. All right. Okay, let's see. Now, you know, people have often run from the police in local news here in the States, actually. It's even featured in many shows, like Cops, remember those shows? That was pretty cool. But now California police have got a nasty, crafty criminal that's been terrorizing the neighborhood by breaking into over 40 homes since last summer, Lake Tahoe.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a serial,
Yeah.
break-in or I don't know what they're calling.
Total nasty criminal. Hand
Serial
to tank.
burglar.
A
I
massive
feel like
burglar.
I feel like I'm fuzzy on the details.
Yeah.
A massive black bear, estimated to weigh about 500 plus pounds, seems to have decided to skip hibernation this winter and be usually stopping frequently for brunches at the Las Casas del Humanos.
Jeez. Weird.
Hank the Tank, I love that name.
Your name's Hank the Tank. Mute me then.
Well, yeah, Jesus.
Bears are just giant ninjas. They really are.
So he earned his nickname by using his weight and strength to barge through doors, garages, and windows.
Wow.
How big did you say it was? 500 pounds?
500, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Now, the average black bear is between 100 and 300 pounds, just to give you an idea. So Hank is a big boy for his kind.
He must be old.
No, the thing is, he's grown to 500 pounds because there's so much food available at Lake Tahoe. So he's just been gorging himself.
fat.
Yeah, he's a big boy now.
He needs to go on a diet.
So,
He needs to be caught and relocated.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm
Jeez.
sure it's happening, is it not? Are they
Okay.
looking to trap him?
while normal non-lethal means have been proven unsuccessful at driving the tank away.
Uh-oh.
They try like sirens and sprays and scents and
Can't
but-
they just sedate him and take him into
well,
some
they have to
strange
find him
place?
first. That's the problem. Like Hertzy says, he's a big fat ninja. Right?
Jeez, dude.
So,
If there needs to be.
so wildlife sanctuaries have been called about for Hank to be trapped and sent to a sanctuary.
Mhm.
Although some of the authorities are saying he's so used now to human settlements that they might have to kill him. So
But if he
hopefully-
goes to like you said, a sanctuary, then they can just kind of do what they do like the grizzlies that are up at Grouse Mountain and just have them in
I
an
totally agree.
enclosed area.
Yeah.
Have-
no, the
have-
visuals are- sorry.
Oh, sorry. Have you seen the update to this?
No, I've seen that the officials have received over 150 calls from Hank.
Yeah.
do you have-
So get this. It's actually Hank's the Tanks because there's 3 of them, all 500 pounds plus.
That explains why they can't find it.
Oh my god, how did you figure out this?
I looked it up once he said Hank the Tank in the group chat, and that was the article that came up. So that's what I thought you were talking about.
So now there's a tank division. There's a gang division.
Yeah, exactly. They're working in tandem with one another.
Oh my God. It's a family of ninjas.
Yeah.
I wonder they probably are related. Yeah.
It's the
Oh
bear
wow,
mafia.
they actually figured it out by DNA evidence. Like
It's-
what
it's
the
the
heck?
bear
Yeah,
mafia.
see-
The bear mafia.
That's so cool.
All this, the dawn of all this is Yogi Bear. You know?
Oh, right.
Yes, that's right.
Only you can stop forest fires though too, that guy.
Smokey.
Smokey
Do
the
you a
Bear.
favor, but you have to do me a favor.
I
Yeah,
can't
so
do a
you
good
have-
Yogi Bear. You go.
So,
Go.
I
You
guess
can do it.
authorities are trying to tell people that, try to be bear aware, which should come through naturally. Don't leave your garbage out. Don't keep your food on your balcony or whatever. Don't bring, try to deter the bear from coming to your place.
No more eating al fresco.
It's so
Wow.
funny when I first we just got a home a couple of years ago, and Nikki kept getting on me about putting the lids on the trash, and I was like, "Look, it's not gonna rain. It's fine, okay? It's not gonna rain. I know the weather schedule. I'll put it on it when it's gonna rain." Like the one morning, I went out and trash all over the yard, and like raccoons had just scattered all this. Like, okay, there's 2 reasons. Okay, all right, I got it.
So, I'm just reading the end of this article because of course I had to look up Hank's the Tanks, right?
Hank the Tank.
So
I love that name.
it ends with the important point here though is that Hank has been cleared of actions he was only partially responsible for, and that those who accused him owe the bear a big apology. Once he and his fellow tanks have retreated back to the wilderness, locals must do the right thing and offer them a spread of delicious bear appropriate treats on specific feast days as lifelong penance.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Hank the Tank Feast Day.
Right.
Did you guys? I'm taking a complete left tangent here, but did you guys ever see that YouTube channel, where a guy basically decided to leave different kinds of honey on his picnic table, and he's got a camera filming in the dark, and there's a bear that comes in. The bear becomes like a taster for the honey, and which one's the favorite? That's much better honey because the bear is always going for that particular one.
Wow, that's
kind of cool.
They would know,
That's
Best
cool
judges.
market analysis there.
Yeah.
A premium. Very
Inductive reasoning right there. That's what. Yeah.
I feel like honey would be a little more subjective.
It totally is.
Approved by bears. Okay, in Hold My Beer news, there's a trucker / white supremacist convoy heading to Washington D.C. now.
Is this still happening? Like really?
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Canada.
Turn
I blame
around.
Canada. I'm just
Now-
Yeah, I still apologize.
Not wanting to be out-stupided by Canadians, Americans right-wing idiots have also decided to throw a tantrum because needles are scary. So they take a bullet for the country, but won't wear a mask to save their neighbor. So a, quote, freedom convoy that left from Scranton, Pennsylvania on Wednesday is heading to Washington, D.C.
Well, that's not very far, is it? I mean, Pennsylvania is in the east too, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it pretty much is.
Huh. Yeah, that's
Okay.
not that far.
So,
That's not a very big convoy.
so
No.
Yeah, just to put it in perspective here, the truckers here drove across Canada. That's like 3,000 miles. Anyway.
yeah.
So y'all do convoys better. We get it. All right. We
Yeah.
know.
I'm just pointing it out. We're the worst. They're better at being stupid, okay?
So the Pentagon has approved the deployment of 700 unarmed National Guard troops to the U.S. Capitol as it prepares for the convoy that are planning protests against the pandemic restriction.
They're still
beginning this
going.
week.
In light of what's happening internationally, they're still going.
Well, there's a meme on the internet circulating that's really delicious. They get a picture of that American convoy truck. They said, with the war that's happening in Ukraine, they said they picked a really bad week to be protesting tyranny of vaccines.
I know, right?
Right.
The juxtaposition is just sad. Like it just looks terrible.
It does. So they're going.
Oh yeah,
I
the U.S.
oh.
convoy seeks immediate lifting of what they are saying are heavy-handed government pandemic restrictions, like mask mandates and
Oh, how dare
vaccine
they.
requirements.
How dare they?
The American Truckers Freedom Fund website says the group is protesting the, quote, unscientific, unconstitutional overreach of the federal government. Oh,
Okay.
and that's going to land. My prediction is that's going to land like a big dud. That's
I
going
think that it's going to land even worse than the Canadian one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Canadian one went bang.
Fizzled.
Of course it did. Because that's exactly. I said it would happen that way. Unfortunately, they went there and they caused a bunch of stupid damage.
Yeah, but it did last for like 3 weeks, nonetheless.
I know it's ridiculous. Well, that's just because we're
I'd be
scared.
surprised. I'd be surprised if it lasts more than 1 week in the States.
It won't.
I mean-
That's the thing. They're going to be met with a lot more force. Your police aren't going to put up with this shit. Our RCMP are like, well, they're being peaceful, and we have to allow them to do that.
It did
So
say that
It's hard to say because I mean, a lot of times when police have to break up like these right-wing types of protests, they're taking pictures together and stuff. And they're like,
Yeah.
that's
you
true.
know, they're hanging out and
The Pentagon, like I said, has approved the deployment of 700
What's that?
unarmed National Guard.
Yes,
So,
unarmed.
unarmed. That's surprising to begin with, especially the States.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's
They
weird.
say it's unarmed.
That's true too. You know, it is.
I'm not counting my concealed.
Well,
you know,
you know,
I'm
when you
gonna
got
count
an
that.
AR-15, we don't count that. You know,
Yeah,
it's-
that's my concealed
you only
carry.
armed. You only, yeah,
I just
Yeah.
tuck that in the small of my back.
It's basically part of my body at this point, you know.
I argued they would take a bullet for this. That they wouldn't take a bullet. They would fire all of the bullets, but they all think that they're somehow bulletproof. They
Yeah.
think that action movies are real, and that if they get shot, they're going to just be fine.
Yeah.
Granted, they're also the ones who would pull the knife out, and I really don't want to disabuse them of that notion.
You're not supposed to do that, y'all.
No,
Just
no,
leave it
that
in.
is keeping the blood inside you.
Yeah, just leave it in there.
well, I
Go to
guess
the
it also
ER.
depends where you've been stabbed. too.
Doesn't matter.
But anyway,
No,
Leave that
keep
out
it
there.
in.
That's true.
Otherwise, everything comes out.
Arrows too, y'all. Arrows too.
and of course, we can't not end this chit chat this week without talking about the story, of course, which is the war in Ukraine. Now,
Which, of course, I alluded to. So.
yeah, the U.S. has observed over 250 missiles launched at Ukrainian targets at this point. A defiant president, I'm hopefully not going to massacre this, Volodymyr Zelensky, said Saturday that Ukrainian forces were repelling Russian country's outgunned military, but the Russian military is being met with a fierce civilian resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Putin.
Oh,
Let's
God.
not call him Putin now.
Let's not
that's good.
disrespect that food. That food's good.
Launched what he called a special military operation before dawn on Thursday, ignoring Western warnings and saying that, quote, neo-Nazis ruling Ukraine threaten Russian security.
Bullshit. So that's his excuse?
Well,
Neo-Nazis are his best friend.
Actually,
Yeah.
there's a faction of the Ukrainian population that are separatist.
Yeah.
And, you know, they wish they could go back to Russia. And that's what he's using as an excuse because he's saying that these people are being threatened. Therefore, he's sending the military to protect them. That's the angle he's using, right?
Wow.
So,
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Because I mean, it's, from what I understood, it was almost like he called dibs. Like he was just like, "Okay, those are just independent now." I called it.
yeah,
I
pretty much.
declared it, so it is so.
It moved from Crimea, right? So the civilian population is fleeing the capital Kyiv by the thousands, heading west. U.S. President Joe Biden approved the release of up to $350 million U.S. worth of weapons
Good.
from U.S. stocks, while Germany, in a shift
Look
from
at that. Your country's doing something good.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy.
Germany, in a shift from its long-standing policy of not exporting weapons in war zones, said it would send anti-tank weapons to and air-to-surface missiles.
Sorry,
And
who's that? Germany?
Germany.
Huh.
They usually try not to get involved, right?
Mhm.
And they also warned Russia they would not buy natural gas from them if they took over Ukraine's supply. Now, if you didn't know, Germany imports a lot of natural gas. Like the vast majority of their imports of natural gas comes from Ukraine. And they warned Russia, if you're taking over these fields of natural gas from Ukraine, we're not buying from you for sure.
So surprise, surprise.
Which
It's
is a
not
bold-
really about the independents and the separatists now, is it? I
It's
I
about a
think
lot
you
of
just hit
things.
the nail on the
Yeah.
head what part of it's about.
It could be, that could be just a bonus as well.
Anyway.
Well, and going after their pocketbook is a pretty good idea because
Oh,
Mhm,
yeah.
That's great.
About 100,000 people so far have crossed into Poland from Ukraine since Thursday, including 9,000 who have entered since 7 a.m. on yesterday, as we're recording this. Polish Deputy Interior Minister Paweł Skifnecker said, that's what he said. Ukraine is also crossing the borders into Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. Ukraine, in case you didn't know, is a democratic nation of 44 million people, so a bit bigger than Canada, population-wise, who won their independence from Moscow in 1991 after the fall of the Soviet Union, and wants to join NATO and the EU, which are goals that that Russia opposes. Any thoughts on the whole thing from you guys?
It's not super surprising that they're going with this because Kiev is noted as being like the mother city of Russia. So this is for Putin, who's very autocratic and very nationalist. It makes sense. I also saw on Raw Story that news there's a leaked document like this morning, I guess, that he is probably going to have to constrict or get a bunch of doctors from the private field because apparently the injuries are that bad out there for the armed forces of Russia. So Ukraine is really fighting back.
Yeah.
Good. I'm really glad to. Well, that grandma, that video, I'm sure that you guys have seen of the grandma telling the guy, "Here, put these seeds in your pocket, so at least a sunflower."
When you die, the sunflowers will grow. You know.
Yeah.
There's some pretty badass Ukrainians out there. The story that's making the rounds. The 13 soldiers on Snake Island. You guys hear about that one?
No, what happened?
Oh, yeah, this is wonderful. There's a little island. There was like 13 Ukrainian soldiers on the island, just guarding the island. A Russian warship comes by and basically says, "Okay, put down your weapons, or we'll open fire." And you hear the recording. Of course, they're talking over the radio, and the Ukrainians are basically saying, "All right, guys, well, I guess this is it." And he basically says, "Hey, Russian warship, fuck off, fuck you, we're not doing it." And they all died.
Yeah, they knew they were gonna die, so they're like, we're gonna die either way. So you want to tell them to fuck off first?
Fuck off.
Wow.
So, and of course, they were shelled by the Russian warship, and all the soldiers died.
Yeah,
they're
unfortunate. But
that's
they
badass,
knew that was going to happen. They're like, yeah, I'm going to lay down and die for my country, but first I'm going to tell them what I think about them.
Pretty badass.
Well, you usually don't get that kind of communication at war, right? You don't get to talk to them and be like, "No, fuck you." That's crazy.
He's like, and then before that though, they're like, make sure you turn up the radio.
Yes, so they can. Yes, that's actually
turn
recorded.
it up to make sure
turn on the radio so they can hear you
hear.
clearly.
That's great.
Now, I want to take.
Was it radio or like loudspeaker? I thought it was anyway.
No, it was
probably
CD radio.
Yeah.
So I want to take a minute to all these right-wing trucking convoy people that think they're patriots. That's an example of patriotism there. Not what you're doing. Standing up to a Russian warship. Yeah. That's courageous. You blowing your horn because you don't want to get a vaccine? That's not courageous, buddy. That's
all I gotta say on that is your white privilege is showing their cishet white man.
They all are too.
100%.
There's a lot of people going around saying that Vladimir Putin, or Vladimir Putin, as we called him here, he wants to reform the old USSR. I don't buy that. I frankly don't buy that. I think that man is way too smart and way too ambitious to do something like that. But I think it provides a great cover for him. I think he's just, we don't know the extent of his fortune, but he is rumored to be probably one of the richest, if not the richest man on the planet, even way beyond Bezos and all that, because he keeps everything secret. And he's no idiot either. Every move that he makes is kind of calculated. So
they're calculating those sanctions too. A lot of them are going after specific people who have been in the room with Putin and Putin himself. So they're being very explicit about, you're going to support this, great. Your bank, and your bank all can't do shit.
Yeah. And
which is great.
The funny thing is normally if the roles were reversed, and let's say for example the situation in Universe B was applying to Joe Biden. Now, his rich donors would go to him and basically say, "Hey, Joe, we're being affected here. Deal with this." And Joe would capitulate. I don't think Vladimir Putin would do that because, frankly, I'm pretty sure his rich friends are not going to him and say, "Hey, Vladimir, I'm losing money here." they'll probably say, dude, try not to kill me first.
Yeah,
I think they're kind of scared of him.
he surrounded himself with yes men. He's kind of taken the autocracy fast track,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which doesn't end well.
Well,
Yeah.
and what we're seeing with the sanctions and stuff is that wars aren't fought as violently as they
No,
used to be.
they're
They're
not,
often fought economically.
Yes, that's a,
Right.
a great lesson about history today.
Mhm.
It's not the kind of shoot 'em up as it was in World War II, World War One, and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Although it seems that Putin's kind of trying to push for a little bit more of some clashes, but I think that he'll find that pretty quickly the whole world will kind of, well, not the whole world, but the
Most of it.
Western civilization for
Are they?
sure would back the Ukraine. I think so.
Well, yeah, but we also did back to Ukraine when Crimea, the crisis happened, and we didn't bat an eye when he basically rolled over, and he basically, got the part he wanted, and that was how many years ago already? So we didn't go to war against him for that. So why would they stop him now? I don't want to sound too pessimistic here, but anyway, like I said, I'm no
Well, I think it
international expert.
depends on. Well, yeah, it just I don't know enough
Anyway,
about it to speak
we
on
will
it. So
we will
I
keep
won't-
an eye on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and real quick, have y'all seen any of the right wing like responses to this stuff? Like,
They're backing him. That's what I've seen. That's what
yeah, they're like, because he hates the homosexuals too. So
since-
he's actually
since
good.
the US hated Russia in general,
Yes,
like on principle.
especially Republicans.
So exactly. So all of a sudden, like you guys like Russia, I'm confused.
I never thought in
I'm
my
very
life I would
confused.
see the GOP actually fight Russia. I never
Mhm.
thought I would see that in my life.
Yeah,
At
no
all.
kidding.
And it's a theocracy, according to like they're saying, hey, they're a Christian nation, so that they got that going for them too. We need to be more like that here and stuff. I was just like, wow, dude, this is insane.
I
What is
have a
going on?
great idea. Okay, Joe, I know you're watching this show, Joe.
Of course.
President Biden. All you have to do is recruit Hank the Tank in his battalion.
Yeah.
There. You will disrupt Russian lines so bad by eating
Yep.
all their food.
Yep. Done.
Think about it.
That would not be the first barren military.
Right. Oh, no.
I know, we need to do some other day.
I think the Russians actually had the first barren military.
Or that the guy in the Bible that had to meet the kids. Anyway, I don't know if that's
All right.
military. Sort of.
Sabrina, you got a top 10 for us?
I do.
All right, let's do this.
And it kind of piggybacks off your last story, so it's
Oh.
kind of nice.
Nice.
Hey, you're
Nice
my
coincidence.
inspiration.
Oh,
Aw.
that's pathetic.
Except the Ukraine is actually a really interesting place. So I decided to focus on it because
Oh, okay.
and the people there because
So we get to learn more about the Ukraine today.
about Ukraine. We shouldn't say the Ukraine. The country's called Ukraine. I
You-
just
okay,
was thinking
sorry.
about that. It's not, no,
You don't
it's
see
something-
that Canada. It's Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw it online
Right.
somewhere, and it's like, "Hello, people." It's not the Ukraine, although it for some reason just rolls off the tongue so much
Yeah.
nicer. Anyway,
Yeah, it's odd. Why do we do that? Like,
I think
I
you
don't
say
know.
the United States.
oh,
do
that's
say
might be
like
why.
Maybe because it starts with the letter U.
maybe.
If it starts with a vowel,
Hmm.
Yeah.
the Ivory Coast. Yeah.
Does anybody know about the grammar of this situation?
Right.
There you go. I've started
5
the
points.
list. Anyway, so I've got 10 interesting facts about Ukraine.
Excellent.
And there's a lot to choose from, just so you know. Anyway.
I sure hope so. It's a
Yeah.
whole country. It'd be sad if there was only 10 things to know about them.
Oh, interesting things. There's lots of boring countries out there. Come on now. We live in Canada. Anyway. The famous Tunnel of Love is in Ukraine. So it's a natural train tunnel and it's surrounded by green arches that are formed by trees on both sides of the tunnel. It's really gorgeous. Like if you haven't seen the Tunnel of Love, go look up the Tunnel of Love.
You see Tunnel of Love, I
sounds
think of this
awesome.
carnival rides in a little
I
boat.
know, right? Me too.
Yeah,
but this is
From Willy Wonka, that's sort of like.
That was not love.
Hey, a chocolate river is love to me, okay?
The
That's true.
chocolate river, yes, but the images.
It was like crazy, just like.
Yeah. So number 9, Ukraine is the biggest country that is actually completely within Europe. So it's second only to Russia, of course, but Russia also occupies part of Asia. So
A lot part of Asia, yes.
yeah, exactly. So Ukraine is 603,000 square kilometers, which is 375,000 square miles. So it's the largest country just by landmass in Europe. It's not the most populated, of course. Like
No.
Kevin said, it's 44 million people. So there's more in France and Germany.
Wow.
Yeah. So a little bit more interesting, the McDonald's in Kiev is reportedly the third most busiest in the world.
Wow. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
People in Ukraine love their McDonald's.
Now here's an anecdote. I was told, I don't know how true this is, but I was told when you say Kiev, that's the Russian way of saying it.
Mhm.
Apparently the Ukrainian way of saying it is Kiev and not
Kiev.
Kiev.
I would.
So I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, I
Don't
don't
take my
know.
word for it. I haven't researched it, but that's what I heard.
It's spelled differently
It
for
is spelled
sure.
differently.
I don't spell it in all of my list. It's spelled with a Y, not an E. So.
All right, anyway.
Anyways, very interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently, McDonald's is actually one of the best fast food options in Ukraine. So
Oh, wow.
explain why it's so busy. There's really not much else out there.
You get tired of borscht after a while.
Yeah.
Don't
Hey,
got any
borscht is
Culvers
good.
out there. They need to get some Culvers.
Oh.
I lived in the Sunshine Borscht capital of like
Sunshine
Canada.
Borscht capital? What the hell is that?
Sunshine borscht is okay. There's two kinds of borscht: a red borscht and like a yellow borscht. And yellow borscht is sunshine borscht.
Ah.
Huh.
This is more information.
It's a
I wanted
Russian
to know.
borscht, not a Ukrainian borscht. Anyway,
Borscht on.
borscht, not, yeah, that's from the Duke of Borscht. Anyways, totally carrying on.
great.
That was my left turn. Number 7, I'm gonna butcher this name probably, but Arsenalna. It's a metro station. It's the deepest metro station in the world.
Really?
It's 346 feet underground,
Wow.
105.5 meters.
Damn.
You take an escalator to get from the top to the bottom. It takes 5 minutes.
You almost
So
need to take
cool.
you almost
Oh,
you need,
not a chance. I wouldn't do it.
you need to take
do
a
it.
subway. You need to take a subway to get to that subway
Yeah.
station.
Now,
Right.
I was Googling this because I read more than one page, of course, to find all of these notes. And one of the websites I went to said that North Korea has one that's actually deeper, but who knows? It's not reported anywhere else. Now, that could be because it's North Korea, but it also could be that North Korea is boasting about something that's not quite true.
Which would not be surprising.
That's
Right?
yeah. That's
I mean, let's look at the Ryung Hotel.
yeah.
And that's Pyongyang, I think it's called.
Pyongyang.
Oh,
Pyongyang.
sorry.
Yeah, that's that station. Apparently apparently their whole metro line is the deepest in the world in North Korea. But anyway, that's another side.
Yes, and they also have the biggest penises in the world.
Exactly. So it's,
18 holes in one.
although I did see some photos of their metro station, it's beautiful. Same with the one in Ukraine. Like a lot of I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. Anyway, there's some really beautiful murals painted on walls in different metro stations in
Well,
Europe.
if you compare it to the graffiti
that's cool.
stained ones in New York, yeah, every
Yeah,
one of them is
yeah.
beautiful.
Number
Hey,
6.
Some of that art's pretty good. Okay. The Sonic the Hedgehog looks real,
Thank you.
practically.
Come on now. Number 6, Ukraine is ranked 4th in the world for literacy. 99.4% of their population over the age of 15 is able to read and write, and 70% of their adult population has had some form of higher education.
Nice.
Wow.
Good for them.
Yeah, that's good.
right?
Shit.
Number 5 is, I'm sure, actually, I always thought it was in Russia, so there you go. I learned something new. Chernobyl was in Ukraine.
That is
So
correct.
I didn't know that because, I'm.
Yeah, I
I've
didn't know
lived
that
in the
either.
world. See, I thought it was in Russia. I think it's happened while it was still USSR, right?
Yes.
That's probably why I always
Oh.
thought Russia. Anyways,
Okay.
so we all know Chernobyl was the nuclear power plant meltdown, so that devastated the community. But it's only been in recent years they've actually been able to safely return there. So people have been going there lately.
They've been creating Godzillas in them.
They have.
Yeah.
Doing documentaries.
It's a great show about it on was it HBO.
Yeah, that's the one I'm actually thinking of.
Oh,
It's called
okay.
Chernobyl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was good.
So, number 4 is also something Kevin said. Ukraine is one of the youngest countries in the world because it only became an independent nation in 1991.
That's correct.
Number 3, the heaviest aircraft ever built was built in the Ukraine. It weighed 285,000 kilograms or
Oh,
628,000 pounds, had a wingspan of 290 feet, which is 88.4 meters.
Wow.
It was
Jesus.
built in Kiev or however it's supposed to be said. That was while it was still part of the Soviet Union. It was called the Antonov AN-225 Mariah. If I pronounce that even remotely close to right. I doubt
Can
it.
you imagine the power you need to propulse that thing
Yeah.
to develop? You know,
It's an
to-
aircraft. An
Yeah.
aircraft is 128,000 pounds.
Jesus.
That's a lot of tons. I don't know what an average airplane weighs, but I'm guessing this one's a lot heavier.
Yeah, it seems odd. It's like the one thing that you'd like to probably not be the heaviest
Yeah.
thing, out of
Yeah, so while Kevin's Googling that, number 2, the world's longest musical instrument also originates from Ukraine. It's a horn called a trombita or a trombita. It's like a trombone, and it's generally 3 to 9 feet long, or 1 to 3 meters long.
What? Do they have people hold it up while they try to play
No,
it?
one person.
What?
This is what I saw in the photos. Yeah.
Oh my god! It's like that gives the tuba guy a run for his money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, jeez, that's crazy.
I don't foresee that joining marching bands.
Right?
No.
Turned around, but what?
Yeah, just for example, the Boeing, the 747
Yeah,
has a
that's a
maximum takeoff weight of 833,000 pounds.
What?
Yeah.
Well, but the actual plane doesn't weigh 833,000 pounds.
That's
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
maximum takeoff weight.
That
Maximum
means
takeoff weight.
including people and luggage
Yes.
and
So it can take off with
Yeah.
833,000 pounds,
That's-
which is 378 tons.
right. But how much does the actual average plane weigh?
Oh, I don't know.
That's
Less
what
than
I
that,
was.
would
That's
think.
what I thought you were looking
Okay,
at.
the initial is 735,000 pounds.
So how is this one at 628,000 pounds the
It's
heaviest
lighter.
aircraft?
Like, I guess it's just lighter than this. It's just bigger but lighter. Yeah.
No, this is heaviest, is what I said, and now you're telling me a 747 weighs more.
Oh, I don't know. Okay,
Huh.
we'll have to do some research.
I might be
We're doing
wrong. I don't like being
from-
wrong.
Are we going from grams to like pounds or something? I don't know.
Metric tons. Yeah, that must be.
Okay, anyway, number 1, aside from Russia, which of course is not completely in Europe, Ukraine has the largest army.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the largest army in Europe. They have 300,000 troops, but of course that pales in comparison to Russia, who has 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well,
And according to
But-
China as well, which got.
but the thing is that their 1.5 million is coming up against 44 million citizens.
Well, I mean,
So-
oh yeah, that's true. Wow. yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder if down the road, some of these Russian soldiers are going to start thinking, I know I'm under orders to do this, but, reluctantly.
yeah, I'm not going to do it. Hmm.
I'm really curious because there's been report of a lot of protests within Russia
Hmm.
about
Yep.
this war. So it's going to be curious to see, how far it actually goes, if it goes there.
Yeah, no
Or some
kidding.
Russian
Yeah.
soldiers are going to say, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to start shooting on civilians for the
Yeah.
hell of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of people in Russia that were like, we want to make it clear that Putin is not Russia,
Right.
and we
Yeah,
we
don't
are
agree with this.
protesting against Putin, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Too many yes people around him.
Yep, that is. Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, Hertzie, you got something for us this week?
I do. Our bigot this week is Nick Fuentes,
Again.
CPAC, and oh yes, and then a whole host of others. Brent, could you bring up that video, please?
Yeah, sure. Here we
We've
go.
got a video.
Oh, no.
of every-
We'll have all the Nicophiles come at us again.
I know. Yep.
I'm hoping that they come up with
Pause
better
on.
insults because the last one sucked.
Yeah, it's pretty lame. Not even funny.
Yeah, they. Yeah.
vaccine powers of the
Yeah.
federal United States government become the evil.
What?
The United States government has become the great Satan that many have called it.
Everybody drink. He said Satan.
What even is
Yep.
our main export?
You're right.
We have our embassies and consulates all across the world. They wave the flag of what? Transsexuals, Black Lives Matter, the gay pride. It should mean something, and now it means all this crap. And it's a shame. Take a look at China. I hear Fox News and conservatives talk all the time about the Chi-Coms, Chinese social credit system. Have you taken a look at what Google and Facebook are trying to do? Social credit system. And now they're going on about Russia and Vladimir Putin is Hitler. And they say that's not a good thing. And I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said, but what other way is there to say it? Of course we know that's a terrible comparison. But they talk about Vladimir Putin and his treatment of the dissidents and of Alexei Navalny and all.
Oh, thank God
Okay,
that ended.
So, oh God, yeah, there was like 5 minutes of him talking of saying nothing. The hell is this crap?
This is the America First Political Action Committee led by Nick Fuentes, who had their conference right next to CPAC, which is the Conservatives Political Action Committee. What's interesting is that with the titles of the rooms and such, you actually really would have a hard time telling whose was whose. The guest list had overlap with the person who makes Magic the Gathering wish they could take back their acronym Marjorie Taylor Greene. One shared topic was the current situation abroad. At CPAC, Trump went on a now normal rambling ad-libbed speech stating the disgusting slime who is currently bombing civilian buildings in the Ukraine, limiting social media of their own people to hide his doings, and man who could not learn from many failed autocrats from before him is smart, while NATO and the other world leaders are dumb. I would get Trump a thesaurus, but we're pretty sure that would go down the toilet as well.
Literally.
Yes. Fuentes opened up his situation with getting a round of applause and starting a chant with the insult to any descriptive word who currently leads Russia. So if you missed it in the video, yes, he did suggest that comparing Putin to Hitler is a good thing, bad thing. It's really kind of hard to figure out.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out what he's saying.
I don't think he knows what he's saying there except for buzzwords.
You know, for a second there, when I was watching the video, and he says, what's the U.S. main export? And I thought he actually was going to make a point, because one of the biggest exports of the U.S. right now is weaponry and war. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, he might actually make a point. But then he says, trans flag.
Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss.
Trans flag, first of all.
It's not cis. Well, he probably would argue with the cis too, but it's not what he considers normal. Which is a very, very thin line of
as much as I hate to say it, his idea of normal is Kevin.
And boring. Not that Kevin is boring, but
Kevin's not boring, but he's a white male.
It's one of those whites.
Heterosexual male who actually does take his fitness seriously. So
have you seen one day?
So no, but he thinks he's some sort of alpha male. You are kind of like the epitome of alpha male, and so I
would say that Kevin has gotten past testing, so he's beta.
The difference is that Kevin opens his mouth and you realize that he's not that stereotypical alpha male.
Patreon goal. You give us money and I will box. And we'll have a boxing match against Nick Fuentes.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
Yes. I would pay for that.
You and I, man. Mano to mano.
I do love that he tries to kind of backtrack this thing with the how trolls on social media will do this joking excuse. And considering that Fuentes and his gropers are Holocaust deniers, this really isn't far out of left field.
Holocaust deniers?
Yeah.
I don't let their comments go on the page.
Yeah. If you let him list off all the things that he believes in, it's just they sound like neo-Nazis straight up. They just hate everybody that's not white and straight and cisgender. They list them all off as bad
America First shit, and obviously he's trying to get into politics. But is he already in politics?
I don't think
so. Anywhere?
I don't think so. I don't think he's been elected yet.
Yes, it's kind of
it sounds like there's some definite aspirations there.
It is scary to see how easily. I mean, this is a man that in the 2, 3, 5 minutes that we had that video there, essentially said nothing of any substance,
none,
and was full of incredible lies and easily debunked lies. And yet, this is the pinnacle of right-wing politics.
And what
Yeah.
I don't understand, every time we see a video of him, it doesn't make sense to me because he's just spewing nonsense. He
Now-
doesn't string coherent sentences together.
No,
Here's
it's
the-
just,
I don't
it's
even
just
think he writes it down. Does he write anything down?
Probably not. I was going to say, now the next question is, did any of the leaders at CPAC have anything to say about this? There have been a couple of conservative leaders, but it's the usual, like, who's that guy from Utah? Tried to run for president, failed miserably.
Mitt Romney?
Yeah, that guy. He said a couple of things.
Oh,
But
okay.
pretty much most of CPAC and everybody else has not said a goddamn thing, or even really attempt to distance themselves from this whole fiasco. Because there's three things that I can count on in life, which is death, taxes, and the U.S. conservative political movement bowing down and prostrating themselves to the lowest denominator, because that is who they truly are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For some
I-
reason, they just can't say it.
No,
Yeah,
and
it's weird.
You know, it seems to me something like CPAC should be like a yearly event, but they
It-
have them like every
yeah.
3 months now. It seems. So what the hell's
Right.
going on there?
Like, yeah, it can't be
It's-
annual. It's like triannual or
I
not.
feel like it was annual at one point, but
Yeah.
you're right. It does seem to be
That was
coming
like
up more.
very common. It almost feels like one of those multi-level marketing rallies. that
Yes.
you
Yes.
you think so? You know, so they
So
can
the
all
culting.
raw,
Yeah.
and go out there and sell the product. You know,
Yeah.
Considering how many grifters are on the right in the right wing, I would not be surprised.
it totally feels like that when you look at it. And like I said, you know, the same thing, multi-level marketing. If you've ever been to one of those things, the guy goes up there and says, "Yeah, we're doing great. We're so awesome. This is what's happening. This is where we're going." And go out there and sell. And you realize you've talked for 20 minutes. You've said nothing.
No, but you
Yeah.
pumped
But you pumped them up.
Yup.
But everybody that leaves knows the ABC stands for always be closing. That's it. That's all they got.
Exactly.
Oh,
So yeah,
Oh,
that's our
so
bigot of the
much.
week, Fuentes again.
again.
As usual.
Jeez.
All right. I guess it's time for another brilliant moment.
Yeah. Brought to you by religion.
I think it's probably one of my favorite segments.
Right. So
They're
this
all
one's
I know, but there's just something about another brilliant moment.
right.
It's a nice pick me up after I usually, depress everybody.
Laughing. I don't know. Lately, I've been laughing a lot at Fuentes too. So, anyway,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is a good juxtaposition, I think, from the really terrible, like where you got to get depressed for a second. Now we get to laugh at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of fun.
we get angry at Bigot of the Week, and then we come to another brilliant moment, and we laugh and laugh because they're so.
That's right. And
They're so
most of them are
precious.
bigots too, so it kind of works out. You know.
It does, absolutely.
So this week we got probably, and I hate to say it, but this is probably one of my favorite shows now. It's the Elijah List. It's just nonstop action. It's hilarious. Like, if you ever want to hate watch something, watch the Elijah List. It's great.
That's the one
And
with Mr. Potato Head, right?
Yeah.
yes. And he's got Johnny Enlow on this time. Just him, not his wife. That's the silent lady that stands in the background and waves and smiles. She's not there this week.
Did we,
Um,
John Enlow, did we see this guy before?
Yeah, you'll recognize him
Okay.
when you see him.
Oh yeah. And he's found a major connection. Now this is gonna blow your fucking mind. All right.
Oh.
He found a connection between the scores and and I believe it's the Super Bowl that he's talking about. But he found a connection, and it proves that the election was stolen.
Was rigged.
Yeah,
Oh my God! No!
because of the scores of football, which we all know are completely decided by the elites. So,
I quit the podcast.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Yeah, I quit Earth.
I quit the country.
This is broadcasting radio waves in a way. So if any alien nation picks this up,
We're sorry. Please pick us up.
That's right.
humanity over this.
Take us with you. Don't fly over us laughing, please.
That's right.
They're
We
aiming
can
to
all go
space.
live with you on Ego, and just hang out there.
Oh,
So-
we got a video of this, that
Yeah.
Brent is about to play.
I'll
Here we
add it.
go.
Brent's
Oh, we
doing
got it. Oh, there we go.
The Cincinnati Bengals almost won with a 75-yard touchdown play that was made possible by a face mask. Should have been a penalty.
Okay, I'm pressing pause here.
Did he say?
If we need to, I can share my screen. So
I
it's a
think what we
face
should
mask.
do-
What's up?
I'm just gonna remove this and get you to add it, Brent.
Add your.
Oh, okay.
You add the video instead.
And then let me try it again. Okay, let's go from right here.
Oops.
What happened?
Where'd the screen go? Oh, someone took it away from the stream.
Huh. Wait, here we go. Let me try it one more time.
Sorry, it must have been me.
See that the Cincinnati Bengals, they're throwing the ball. The receiver grabs the face mask of the defender, essentially throws him to the ground with it, and the referees don't call it. And they got a touchdown, and that almost won the game for the Cincinnati Bengals. A face mask.
Wow.
Illegal use of hands on the face mask.
Illegal use of face masks. So
And
it's
so
gonna
a defender was pulled
factor in.
down. If you look at
Hold on. I'm gonna pause, let this buffer a little bit, and ask the question. So, are the football players wearing like masks underneath their helmets or something?
No, that he's talking about the helmet. It's an
Okay,
illegal
okay.
grabbing the helmet, right? But of course, he's trying to equate that with illegal face mask stuff, because that factors into his narrative there, right? And this is all such
Right.
like hindsight bias, like crazy. I mean, I've never seen hindsight bias quite this obvious.
It is quite known in football. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe you're not supposed to. But the kind of little grill they have in front of their face, that sometimes the guy will grab that, which in other words, you get the helmet essentially, and you can pull down the guy's head, right?
And that's what he's
Right.
saying happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he keeps calling it a face mask because he's an idiot.
Because he needs to sell that to be the narrative,
Yeah, exactly.
Does he want us to stop having football players with helmets?
Even Steve Schultz at this point is looking at this saying, "You got to be kidding me."
Yeah, he's got.
They won. Who won? They won, right? The Bengals. I don't even watch football. I don't know.
I don't either. I did watch
Anyway.
that game, but yeah, I don't even recall. I wasn't paying attention.
Let's hit play again here.
It's a Super Bowl. I don't know.
Get the numbers there. Again, we're trying to do this slow enough where you can write it down, and if not, you can listen to it again. The
Make sure to
Bengals
write this down,
for
guys.
the game had 305 or 306 yards. To trying to find out the official numbers. 305 or 306. The losing team, the Bengals, had that many yards. Well, 75 of those yards came from that illegal play. That it should have been. People were tweeting all over the place. Coaches, sports stars, all over. It's like, how can the referees miss that? How did they miss that? How did they miss that? Everybody saw the pulling of the face mask, and so on their totals for the game, it shows 305 yards, but it should just be 220 yards because those 75 yards should not have counted.
Yeah,
as that. So, what's the coordination? Well, the man who sits in the White House right now, he won allegedly with 305 electoral votes.
Oh,
wow.
The same, and there is
Wow.
using of a face mask, illicit use of face mask in order to put him there. So you see, in a very nuanced way, this game was telling us what had been taking place, how the enemy tried to use face masks in order to defeat who was supposed to win. So that's
Point of order.
number one.
Point of order, 330 yards. Or 230 yards. I'm sorry, 230 yards. His math is off.
Oh no. No shit, really?
I'm
Oh
pretty
my
sure.
good
Now I gotta, okay,
goddamn.
now I gotta check it.
What?
Okay.
So let me get this straight. So President Biden cheated, and he won by a certain number of electoral votes in the electoral college, and somehow
The number of electoral
X-group
votes of 305 equals 305 yards, and so
in
therefore
the Super Bowl.
and the
And the
75
Illuminati-
yards are supposedly illegal, and so therefore 75 of the electoral votes must have been illegal.
Yeah, and so
And-
the Illuminati's trying to tell us this somehow this convoluted way via some football game.
I mean, everybody knows that God. Everybody knows that God's prophecies work through the numbers on the Super Bowl game. Everybody knows that from the scores,
God is
you know,
a
right?
huge
That's
Super Bowl fan, obviously. Obviously.
not hindsight bias at all. That's just
Definitely not a fan of math. I have the calculation to prove it. It's 2:30.
so he didn't even have the numbers right.
My God, are you fucking
Oh
kidding me?
man.
This cannot get dumber than this. Oh my God.
Don't give them a goal, Kevin. Don't give them a goal.
Right,
Oh.
don't give him a goal.
Oh,
Oh God, I'm laughing so hard. I think my stomach hurts.
God, I wish I could look at reality this way and just always be like, "Oh, that's the same number that was over there, and that's the same." It's a prophecy.
Oh my
That's
God,
what it
it's
is. It's a prophecy.
Jeff Goldblum is looking at this, wondering how he came up with this.
Yeah. It's like the number 23. You know, it's just like going crazy. Oh, it's so funny.
God.
oh, I can't
Wow.
believe this. I can't believe this guy. Oh my God. Of all the- this is beyond what I can even imagine. Of all the convoluted ways to try to take a look at life, that somehow, oh God, no.
Yeah, it's just
I know a lot of people like to look at numerology and they like to see, oh, these numbers kind of match.
Yeah.
Therefore, ergo coincidence, ergo that has some kind of influence on the world.
Yeah.
But to think that a football game that's played a year and a half
But they still think the election was stolen.
after an election somehow,
it's a face mask. Illegal use of face mask.
Which isn't even the same mask.
It's a helmet, dude. Like what are you doing?
Technically, face guard.
Yeah, face guard.
Helmet. Yeah.
But you know what? Even if let's say the football player had a mask underneath his face guard, which you might have, right?
Doubtful, but yeah.
But you know, so what? So what does that prove?
Nothing.
It doesn't. God, this
Nothing,
is
yeah.
so stupid.
Thank you for the
This is
laugh. That was
beyond
great.
stupid. Oh my God! All right, so let's take a quick pause. Thanks, Bradley.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
And when we'll be back, we'll be with our friend David Fitzgerald, and we'll be talking about the history of Mormonism. So stay with us.
Ooh, fun.
It's where it's at. You're listening to Left at the Valley. I don't know why you are, but you are.
I'm Amy with a Y.
And I'm Amy with an I.
And we're the hosts of Secular Soup, where each week we offer up a bowl of real talk about atheism, feminism, politics, parenting, and whatever else we want to talk about because it's our podcast.
Just listen to what these random dudes are saying about our show.
This is what would happen if Daria and Jane grew up and started a podcast.
So if you like extremely foul-mouthed ladies with opinions, this is the podcast for you.
Grab a bowl and taste the magic. Slurp even this.
Hi, I'm God, and I just wanted to make sure to tell you not to listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud. That's Unapologetics with an X at the end. But, yeah, definitely do not listen to the show. I mean, I swear to me, alright, I will murder my son. Well, I mean, I kind of already did that, but just don't listen to the show, okay? Hey, Lucy.
Can you not call me that? Okay? We already went over what my name is, okay? It's Lucifer.
Alright, look, Luce. You wanna come with me? I'm gonna go fuck with this guy, Joe.
No, don't do that, okay? Can you just leave him alone?
Yeah, I'm gonna kill his family.
No, don't do that.
I'm gonna give him sores all over his body.
Don't do that. That's disgusting.
And, I'm gonna kill all of his livestock. You know.
Stop saying things. Just stop.
I'm gonna blame the whole thing on you. Alright, let's go, bud. remember, don't listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud.
Hey, definitely listen to that show. It's awesome. It's really cool. He's really a dick.
I heard that.
All right, our next guest is our returning champion. He's a historian and author, probably one of the coolest guys we ever met. He's a snappy dresser and a sassy dancer. David Fitzgerald is back. Welcome back, David.
Woohoo! Great to be back, you guys.
Slurs applause. Oh, David, I know you've been on the show so many times. A lot of the veterans listeners know you, but we always have new listeners, so maybe you'd be so kind to give us a quick bio as to who David Fitzgerald is.
Who is this David Fitzgerald? Mostly I'm known as being an author of a book called Nailed, and another book series called The Complete Heretic's Guide to Western Religion. So in the book, Jesus, Mything in Action. I do a lot of work, or have done a lot of work, on the Jesus historicity issue. And that's what I'm best known for. But I'm also known for other atheist and religious activities and subjects. I was the co-director and founder of the world's first atheist film festival in San Francisco, and San Francisco's oldest Darwin Day festival, Evolution Palooza. So there's that.
And soon in the next Hollywood megastar when his time short books goes to Hollywood.
Yes, sci-fi author too. Yeah, how can I forget that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today we brought you on, David, because if there's one thing you've been talking about a long time, and you said you're very good with history and all that, it's Mormonism. I mean, you've written about that, and we've never had a Mormon focus show on the God knows how many years we've been doing this.
Which really sucks because our ex-Mormon co-host isn't here.
No, I know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Of all the times for him to not be here, right?
Yeah.
And I know I had some listeners in the past ask me, hey, when are you going to do a show about Mormonism and history? I said, I need to find somebody who's capable to talk about that subject. And here he is, David Fitzgerald. So, David, the funny thing is about Mormons is I know they're much more prevalent in the U.S.
The funny...
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed you there.
Yeah, it's amazing for a religion that's been barely around 200 years or so. They've just chopped so much history into those 2 centuries.
Yeah.
We were joking before we went on the air that she said it should be a soap opera. I said, no, we should get HBO in here and make that the next Game of Thrones, because there's so much sex and violence in early Mormon history. It's and just even the political situation, it's just unreal.
Perfect. You're the perfect man to guide us through this. The funny thing about Mormonism is up here, I've always said, as Canadians, for every knock on your door, for every 10 knocks on your door, none of them are like Jehovah's Witnesses. But there is that one Mormon.
Oh, yeah, but they just want to shovel your driveway.
Yeah, I'll try to offer to clean your yard or something like that. So what do you say about my yard? Anyway, it makes me curious about the history of Mormonism, and maybe you'd be so kind to guide us throughout the history of Mormonism. What can you tell us?
How much time do we have?
I was going to say, this could be a long time.
If you know Bryce Blankenagel from Naked Mormonism, he and I did a series for Myth Vision podcast on basically the secret history of Mormonism. And when Derek approached us for doing it, we thought, we can do, 4 episodes, 5 episodes. And I think we finally wrapped up around 29 or 30 episodes. And we didn't even make it to Utah. We just made it to, we barely made it to Utah. That's where we wrapped it up. That's how much history is in there.
Yeah. Wow. You got 45 minutes or an hour to do it. So.
Well, and it's a funny thing too, is that, people bring me in to talk about Mormonism, and, they love when I talk about Mormonism, but compared to the Jesus historicity thing, which is can be very dodgy in atheist circles, I know so much more about Jesus historicity than Mormonism, but they're happy to accept me as an expert in Mormonism, not so much in Jesus historicity. It's just funny. It's just funny the way the red flags work in people's brains. But where do we start with Mormonism? It's amazing to talk about the early years of Mormonism. We could talk about the doctrines of Mormonism, which is like steampunk Scientology. It's just crazy wackadoodle. And we could talk about Mormon archaeology, because they've got this whole alt history world building scheme that just has no bearing in reality at all. And it's wild to see all the ways that we know that it fails from not just history, but from science, from genetics, from linguistics, from archaeology. I mean, the list goes on and on. No matter how you slice it, it comes up peanuts.
So I think we should probably focus on early history of Mormonism. I think.
Yeah. So I think most people realize that it was founded by a guy named Joseph Smith. He lived in upstate New York in the early 19th century. And the most interesting thing about him is it seems like even as a young, precocious kid, he had this real gift for imagination and this really charismatic way about him. He was also a bit of a con artist. And when I say that, I don't mean hyperbole. I mean, he's literally a con artist. He was literally convicted of being a con artist. And for the longest time, Mormons denied that. And then somebody found the court record, the actual court record. And one of the things I love about Mormonism is they make all these fantastic claims, and then they say that there's no physical proof for it. Then the physical proof shows up, and it turns out it proves that what they're saying is not true at all. And that's happened again and again and again with Mormonism. I don't know if you guys caught the Netflix show Murder Among the Mormons. Did that make it away again?
Oh yeah, I saw it. That was really good.
Really good job.
Creepy. That's weird.
The director of Napoleon Dynamite turned out to be the guy who did that documentary. And I think he's the best thing to come out of Mormonism, honestly, because I know that whole story that they tell in that 3-part thing, front to back, and I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. They did such a good job at laying it out. And I feel like I'm going down all the rabbit holes at once right now. Let's stay on target. So anyway, so we've got this guy, Joseph Smith. Super nutshell of the story. He started a religion. And later, this is the fascinating thing to me too, is we all know, if you've seen the South Park episode, you've seen how his origin story starts. An angel appeared to him when he was trying to figure out which is the one true church, and he said none of them are. And then God and Jesus showed up and told him to start his own religion and find these golden plates, and they'll tell you all about the true history of the United States.
From the
before
angel,
Indians were evil and red-skinned, they were white and delightsome Israelites. And there was thousands of years of Christian civilization in the Americas before they all got wiped out. It's fantastic. It's racist. It's wonderful. It's just a perfect storm of crazy cuckoo-ness.
So let's explore that. So Joseph Smith gets an angel, quote unquote. I love it how it's always like very isolated and personal.
Right. I missed one crucial thing about this. The early Mormons never heard that story. That story didn't even get made until like 10 or 20 years after the fact. So they were still working out the bugs in the origin story long before Mormonism had taken off. It had already taken off and become a thing before they got their story straight on how it got started, which blows my mind. My mind.
This is very similar to the story of Paul, Saint Paul. Well, how he went from Saul to Paul. That story of falling off the horse. He never wrote that story himself.
It's just going to say exactly that. Yeah, Luke gives us contradictory versions of it, and Paul never says anything remotely like that. To him, apostles are people like him who studied the Old Testament scriptures, the Jewish scriptures rather, and had visions of the risen Christ in their brain. And it's fascinating to see how different Christianity is before Mark writes his Gospels and after Mark writes his Gospels, because Paul's generation and the writers of the book of Hebrews, they're talking about a completely different animal than after Mark writes his allegory / biography.
So Joseph Smith, the known con who's been convicted in court already, and we have records of this. All of a sudden decides he's visited by an angel,
and people believe him.
And
So,
it's the
Macaroni's
angel-
brother. Moroni. That's it.
Macaroni's brother.
And it's all written on these golden plates, and there's so many implausibilities about this story and the ongoing translation of it. And like I said, we couldn't spend a whole day doing this. We can spend a whole month doing this, day after day after day.
So the golden plates, is it like the 10 Commandments on golden plates, or is it just?
Well, we'll never know because they got taken up back to heaven by those angels. So
right,
can't make it fall into the Baptist or the Episcopalians' hands. Satan can get his hands on them, and that'd be it.
My first reaction to somebody telling me golden plates is, gold is a horrible material.
Yeah,
super heavy as well.
Super soft.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It has monetary value for humans, so they're prone to being stolen.
Yeah.
It seems to me that a divine being trying to write something on gold is only valuable in the eyes of humans. I mean, aside from that, in the eyes of a divine creature, gold is really not that.
No, you'd want stone.
One would think. One would think.
Yeah.
Here's another fun fact. Before he was even had these visions of the future, there were legends of a golden book that had been discovered in Canada years before he ever concocted this story.
That was that Canadian golden book was the recipe for making maple syrup. It's locked out in Ottawa at some point right now.
Well, apparently it was also a found document of, and there were several of that genre of lost, Viking documents or Phoenician documents that prove that these guys came to the New World and they're the ones who built the mounds, because clearly the Indians couldn't have built these things like Cahokia and these Mesopotamian style ziggurats and things that we see in Aztec and Mayan and Mississippian culture. So it had to be white guys, clearly. Of course. It's just science,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, isn't the truth of that the Vikings did come into this area and then got chased out by the indigenous
well, they
peoples?
made it as far as like Nova Scotia. I forget where exactly they wound up precisely, but they didn't last long.
No,
they didn't last long. Yeah,
no. Indigenous people were pretty badass.
Yeah, but nonetheless, you have Victorian era people spouting all these crazy conspiracy theories about how the Indians are the lost tribe of Israel, or they're descendants of the Phoenicians or the Viking, fill in the blank. And there's a crazy conspiracy theory to explain where Indians came from and the Indian artifacts came from.
So Joseph Smith claims he's got golden tablets, but they need to be somehow translated, right?
Yep.
Translated, yes. So he
That's
gets these
where hats
magics.
come in.
Again, the story keeps changing, and there's the Urim and the Thummim, Uma Thurman.
Uma Thurman.
Stones.
Yeah, I've seen her. She's good. She was in Kill Bill.
And then later it came out that no, the whole thing was done in the hat, and it's like, first they were treating these things like they were magical spectacles, and then nope, he puts them in a hat and they light up, and let him show the text of the golden book. And it's so funny. It's like he invents all these convoluted things. It's like, well, why do we need the physical books at all if you can just look in your magic hat? So these stories, yeah.
Hold on here. So you're telling me he's got something, Uma Thurman, and he puts her in a hat, and then he just looks in the hat?
That is my understanding. Yep. And he does it behind a curtain so no one can see him do it, because they're super holy, these tablets. So no one can touch them, no one can look at them, they'd just be struck dead, just like that.
So he can't do it in a dark room, he has to be in a hat?
I think he did it in a kitchen in a room divided by a curtain, if I remember correctly, while his secretary writes down what he said.
From the other side of the curtain.
From the other side of the curtain. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Don't want to take a chance at him accidentally,
That just sounds to me like a great place to sniff a drug.
Melting.
Kevin, that's a good look for you.
Wasn't there a thing about drugs during that time too? Like the people listening might have been drugged.
Yeah, there. And Bryce knows a lot more about that than I do. He did a whole thing on the Pharmacological Association, or not association exactly, but there were like mentors to Joseph Smith, and it's clear that they were involved with experimenting with drugs. And some of the descriptions of things going on in the temple sound like they're all smacked out of their brain during it, and seeing angels coming up and down, and it just, the whole thing just really screams of mass drug trip, and suggestion.
So just so I can really get a clear understanding of this. So he puts Uma Thurman into the hat, and then puts the hat over his face, and then he has the golden tablets underneath somehow.
Well, here's the thing. At first, at first he would use them to look at the tablets, and then later he realized, well, actually, we don't need to even have them in the same room to do it. So it's like, why are they even here at all?
What? So
a fun fact about Mormonism is they don't always get their story straight, and it takes several incarnations to iron out all the bugs and stuff, which is still true today. And to be fair, that's true for all religions. It's there. Yeah, that's not special.
I watch a lot of trash TV, and I saw something about people in like Russia, Ukraine, that kind of part of the world. They think Mormonism is like a crazy cult, and that they're coming to like kill them. And
wow, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think they did the same thing for the Hare Krishnas and the Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientologists too.
I mean, it's not far from the truth. It is a crazy cult, but
it's a crazy cult, man. I mean,
it is. And honestly, if it hadn't, there's so many friends I know who are ex-Mormons, and it messed them up in ways that I can kind of relate to, being a former Southern Baptist. So you can have a lot of love for this and a lot of hate for it at the same time, and it's kind of fascinating. I don't think I'll ever have the same breadth of knowledge about the Jehovah's Witnesses as I do about the Mormons, because the Mormons it's just so fun. It's just so fun and over the top, and Jehovah's Witness just makes me sad. It's like, it's a Bible Sunday school that went wrong, terribly, terribly wrong.
All right, so we got Joseph, and he's reading out of hat.
Yeah.
And at this point, he doesn't even need the tablets; he just needs the
right
stuff in there.
And the funny thing is, he's translating it right, but somehow when translated, it all comes out in old-timey King James English.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know why he didn't just translate into English, but yeah, he just.
So what language is he translating from?
Reformed Egyptian, which, as we all know, is the ancient language spoken by the Hebrews when they came to America, based on the Egyptian, of course. Another fun fact about
Reformed Egyptian, does that really exist?
That's not really a thing. Turns out, not really a thing.
Reformed Egyptian, is that, what the hell is that?
One more delicious thing about Joseph Smith's career is that when it started, we found Egyptian hieroglyphs and writings and papyri, but nobody knew how to read them except Joseph Smith. He knew how to read them through the power of the Lord. So he would tell us all about the book of Abraham and how it's really about this and that and that. And then we discovered how to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. And just like that, everything he said turned out to be a huge, big ass lie.
Except he was reading Reformed Egyptian, so that's obviously
it's different.
Oh, yeah. To be fair, if you see examples of his Reformed Egyptian characters, the one linguist they took it to just thought it was some kid's, bad attempts at doing English. The characters are just ridiculously and clearly based on our alphabet and just kind of twisted here and there. It's goofy. It's just goofy.
It's like Pig Latin, sort of.
Yeah, it was like backwards K's and things like that. There was not really a lot of imagination put into the description of the characters. And he was constantly putting his foot in his mouth about that kind of thing. Because he claimed to be able to decipher Greek and all these other languages. Just like actually the Mormon leadership today also still claims to have these gifts of discernment and translation and healing and whatnot. We all know about their temple endowments, their magic underwear that protects them from all harm. And everybody has a story about how their cousin on their mission, got saved in a fire or by, drug cartel bullets by their underwear. And
it's they're bulletproof.
They're everything proof. Yeah, super holy.
They're super holy.
And
okay, so Joseph is trying to translate, according to him anyway, those golden tablets that are not even there.
Yeah.
So who's buying this at this time? Who's following this and saying,
That's what I don't
you know
get.
what? That's so true.
How did he get followers?
That to be honest with you, I don't know how the hell he got the followers, because people had to be just a lot less credulous, or a lot more credulous back then.
Well, at the same time, Alex Jones has followers.
There you go.
So yeah,
And I suspect that those two demographics had a lot of overlap. You know, I mean, this is early America. This is like Rip Van Winkle era, Headless Horseman. You know, there's lots of weird, wacky, into the world and folk magic, and people just don't know about this country that they're living in. I mean, it's a brand new country. What
years are we talking about here?
We're talking the early 1800s. I think he's claimed to have his first
we're talking like Salem witch trials era there.
1820s to the 1840s.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the Revolutionary War wasn't all that long ago.
No. Right. I mean, Canada wasn't even a country yet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It'd be like us talking about what was happening during the bicentennial in 1976, that kind of thing. That's how far it was.
Yeah. So who were his first followers or accomplices?
Well, one of his first followers was very important, a guy named Martin Harris. And one day, Joseph walked up to him and said, "God told me to ask you for $50. And he did. And why would you lie about something like that? And he became both Joseph's translator and his secretary, rather. He dictated to him, and his patron. And for some reason, his wife was not really happy that he was the patron and secretary of this guy, Joseph Smith. And so, again, apologies if you've already seen the South Park story, but she took like the first, I think, 100 pages of the Book of Mormon that he ran home to show her. And stories differ. She may have hid them, or she may have, as the family said, just chucked it right into the fire when he wasn't looking and burned it and said, "Oh, well, it's no problem. Just retranslate those pages again." No problem.
You're a skeptic.
It's like, okay, sure, no problem. And of course, when Martin Harris came back to Joseph Smith and told him that, he freaked and was in a super funk for like 3 weeks. And then finally let him know that God told him that, you know what? Because he was sinful and doubted it and didn't have faith, whatever, we could never translate that part of the Book of Mormon ever again.
Oh,
but
That's his punishment.
he provided another set of plates that was the same basic story, only different. So, so there you go.
Wow.
And again, it's like, and here's one thing we have to keep in mind. We've all heard this story. Back then, the early Mormons didn't hear that story. And we only have, I don't have a really good handle on what they were preaching at the time, but all the bells and whistles that we have, they had never heard. Those didn't get developed until probably after Joseph Smith was dead, in fact, because there was so much going on behind the scenes as they were shaping this new religion.
Wow. Okay. So anyway, he's quote unquote translating from Reform Egyptian into old timey English.
Yeah.
And he develops the Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon. Yeah. Yeah. And he also talks about all these ancient civilizations in North America and these battles and, steel swords and chariots and all these different animals that like elephants and curulums, whatever curulums are. It's funny. There's some words that we don't know what they're meant to be in the Book of Mormon. It's like, well, why did you say curulum? What's a curulum? Why didn't you translate that word?
Yeah.
Right. And I think Mormons say those are mammoths. But basically, every new scientific idea that was just mastodons and mammoths had just been discovered, their bones. And lo and behold, here they show up in this book that's ancient and talked about the whole time. And
like Islamic studies today.
Right. Man, don't get me started on Islam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I have to go down this rabbit hole, honestly, because this is something I've been working on for the last year. I've been working on the sex and violence in the Bible book, but increasingly that's been kind of getting bumped over while I've been doing this of these other things. And the main gist of that was talking about how, I've been doing 20 years on arguing that Jesus's historicity is very dodgy, shaky, and I don't think he existed. Mm-hmm. And I used to tell people one of the biggest surprises when I wrote that book was how many Buddhists would come up to me and say, yeah, we're having the same debates in our circles about Buddha. And how many ex-Muslims would come up to me and say, yeah, we're having the same debates in our circle about Muhammad and if he existed. Boom, that blew my mind. It's like, sure, I can see Buddha. Muhammad, you got to be kidding me.
Oh.
And
Yes,
until
we
I
have
asked
records
them
of that
why,
one?
and they would say, yeah, because this, and it's like, oh, okay, he's starting to sound a lot more like Jesus. And so I did a talk for the Recovery from Religion Foundation, and I attended a conference at the Global Center for Religious Research. And basically, I just kind of skimmed over the top 10 biggest world religions, just to kind of check out, see how they fit this pattern. And lo and behold, every single major world religion has the same dodgy backstory, to the extent that I don't think any of those guys existed. Wow. I think all of them were invented. And I'm coming out with a short book just talking about the evolution of religion and showing the dodgy history and lack of historical evidence for any of these guys.
Which is a fun
Western religion, Eastern religion, all of them. Yeah,
it's a fun thing to say because as much as you can doubt the history of Jesus, the historicity of Jesus or Muhammad, we know Joseph Smith actually existed.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Yes, Joseph Smith, but Joseph Smith didn't found Mormonism, Kevin. The Prophet Mormon and the Angel Moroni did.
Oh,
right. He was just there to deliver the message.
He was just the messenger. Yeah, and this is the thing, and we see this happening in every single major religion. Yeah, even ones that are even like Sikhism is barely 500 years old. Same thing with it. And the older ones, it's even further off the scale.
It'd be interesting to see how they relate to each other, because I know with the Norse myths, one of the things that I always look at is they were never written down until after Christianity had already started infiltrating. So I'm always looking at it like how much was changed before and after.
Same with the Celtic culture and the Celtic Christianity. I think the same thing. We'll never know. But it sure is an interesting coincidence that all those Irish saints were also the names of Irish goddesses, and so what are they kidding?
St. Patrick did a lot of skate work.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. A lot of incestual things incest happening between religions here somehow.
Let's get back to Joseph Smith real fast. So he starts this crazy religion, does all these crazy things, and he gets a following against all odds. And as they get bigger, they run into trouble with what they call the Gentiles, all non-Mormons. And there's this whole phase of American history where we have Mormon wars. We have Joseph Smith getting enough political power that he tries to run for president. It's astounding.
But I mean, if Donald Trump can do it, I don't see why Joseph Smith can do it.
Right. No kidding. And they use a lot of the same playbooks,
the conman. When they used to tell American kids, American kids anybody can become president, I thought that was always apparently anybody can become American president.
Yeah, but if things had played out a little differently, we could have had a little independent country of not just Utah, but Kansas and Missouri and those places. We could have had a theocratic U.S. presidency, turn the United States into United States of Mormonism.
David, it's not too late to have an independent.
Don't give up hope. Yeah.
Utah, Kansas, it's not too late, man.
It's worth reading the book because the story of how he just comes growing in power and influence and how it kind of warps his brain and spirals out of control. And like you see the the momentum build and build and build. And it's like, you can't put the genie back into the bottle at a certain point. His rhetoric and his dogma and his power and his sex life just continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. And there's just no turning. And we all know how it turned out,
Well, hold on, I'm okay, curious. All of a sudden, you said his power and all that, and now his sex life. Now you got my attention.
Yeah.
What happened there?
We all know polygamy is a thing, but back in the day, first of all, it was not a thing at all. And when it started, it was very, very secret. In fact, his first plural wife was a girl he had an affair with, and nobody called her his plural wife until long after he was dead. And it was like, oh, retroactively, oh, you know what? She must have been his first plural wife, one of 50 or so that we know of, not counting all the ones who sealed themselves to him eternally after his death.
Wow.
Yeah, the dynamic between him and his wife Emma is fascinating, because she is on one hand super long suffering, and on the other hand, she had some skeletons in her closet too. And it looked like at one point she was going to say, okay, you can have these extra wives. I'm going to have this guy over here as well. And,
hey, fair's fair, It's
fair's fair. Hey,
that's
no
the one
joke.
who burned the book, right?
But I mean, there's just so much more going on in Mormon history than we realize. And, yeah.
Wow. So that one you call Nema there, that's the one who tossed the book in the fire?
No.
Is that her?
No, that was
totally different woman.
No, different.
Totally
different.
Okay. He gave the pages to another guy, and his wife threw it into the fire.
Right.
Okay.
One of the guys who turns out to be one of the witnesses of the books, because at the front of your Book of Mormon, we've got the 3 witnesses and the 8 witnesses who witnessed those witnesses, and it's funny, if you say early Mormon history, every one of those guys wound up getting kicked out of the church or leaving or recanting or and then going back flip-flopping on their stories.
So Joseph Smith has a following at this point, and he has political ambitions.
Right.
What happened to him after that?
Well, he gets in big trouble because everywhere the Mormons go, they're this big homogenous blob that just sort of takes over the area. They only deal with themselves. They're very insular, and outsiders don't like it. They don't like it that they do that, and they don't like it as a weird cult. They don't see them as Christians, and it only gets worse as time goes by. So they wound up getting booted out here and there, and there's actually a series of these Mormon wars, we call them, in Kansas and Missouri, where at one point the Mormons were fighting against the U.S. government directly with cannons and everything, full scale war. Yeah. And
needless to say, they lost, I guess.
Needless to say, they lost, but really horrifying stories of what went back and forth in those wars. When they finally made it to Utah years later, they had this thing called the Mormon Reformation, which we would call it something more like the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where they just turn on themselves, and everybody who doesn't pass the muster is a witch hunt for Mormons, basically. Where if you weren't a true blue Mormon, or if you tried to escape Utah, they'd find you and they'd kill you. They'd shed your blood.
Escaping Utah is something that occurs naturally from being there, isn't it?
The desire to, anyway.
Yeah, something like. Oh.
And I'm sure you all know about the Mountain Meadows Massacre, and that happened around that time too.
I don't. Please elaborate.
A group of homesteaders from Arkansas is passing through Utah at this one time where tensions between the U.S. government and the Mormons are at all-time high, and war is about to break out at any moment, it seems like. And this wagon train comes through Mormon territory, and next thing you know, they get attacked by Indians. Only the Indians seem to be white guys dressed up in blackface, dressed in Indian garb. And it turns out that it's not Indians; it's the local Mormon militia who offer to come in and treat with the Indians to get them all safe to safety if they surrender their weapons. And this is after this group opened fire on these guys at breakfast. The women, children, men, boys. And once they finally did surrender to the Mormons, they took all their rifles. They were marching them back to safety until they stopped, and the Mormons said, "All right, Mormons, do your duty," and they shot everybody. All the men, all the women started shooting again. The only ones they didn't shoot were the children about the age of 6, and apparently there were some kids on the cuff that they spent some time debating, should we shoot them? Should we shoot them? I better shoot them. Boom. So only a handful of kids survived that, and they were all young enough that they thought they wouldn't be able to have any recollections of what happened. Yeah, not true. They remembered everything that happened, and years later, many years later, because by that time Brigham Young was stonewalling the investigation so much, and the Civil War delayed it as well. But yeah, the survivors just were, all their belongings wound up in Mormon hands, and all their children wound up in Mormon families until the government came to get them out. And
didn't Brigham Young also charge the government for some of the supplies for that?
Yeah, he was the governor at the time, so the territorial governor. So yeah, he was always pulling just crazy abuse of powers. Yeah. Even when Joseph was still alive, in the towns that they owned, were all Mormon towns, they had bizarre rules that, like, they had a writ of corpus where if Joseph Smith was ever arrested, he couldn't be arrested. Bingo, because that's American. That's the American way.
I'm seeing a lot of parallels between him and Donald Trump here.
Yeah. And to be fair, one other big surprise for me was realizing it's not just Joseph Smith. It wasn't just Brigham Young who were these rascals. There's a whole rogues gallery of people who were attracted to this movement. The head of his secret police. There was like his chief surgeon who was also their chief abortionist and clandestine abortionist, I would say, under the table abortionist.
The Mormons have a secret police?
There's all these con artist types who preyed on Mormons. And this is something I didn't know when I was writing the book, but just researching this Mormon on Mormon con artistry, when I was looking for things from this period, I found all these things that turned out that Utah is the con artist capital of the world. And Mormon on Mormon fraud is rife. It's just, it was case after case after case after case after case, and it's still going on. I'm
so shocked to hear there's Mormon fuzz. There's Mormon police out there. What the hell is that?
Yeah, and it's like, I just do not understand how Mormonism is still around. Honestly, it's just,
you're not allowed to have sex, you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to do drugs.
Right.
Well, and they all had 200 kids each, so I mean that helps.
Fun fact about that. So we were talking about polygamy and all the kids. So originally that was totally secret. They didn't make it official doctrine, and when they did, it was just to the leadership, and so just a handful of guys had it. So like most people had one wife. Some people had 2 wives, and the leadership had all the wives, basically, 2 or 3. So it took a long time for polygamy to come out of the closet, because it was being denied publicly and in print over and over and over again, until they finally said, we're just kidding. Yeah, it's a eternal covenant of God, and you have to believe in it, or you can't go to heaven. And so that caused problems with them, because they couldn't become the state of Utah. Polygamy was what hung that up, until they finally said, oh, wait, do we say it's eternal? We meant it's eternal, but it's in heaven. So we don't have to practice it here. It's heavenly. So
wow. So much retroactive fixing things.
You think a lot of Mormon history would be different if they were simply allowed to drink coffee?
Say that again, Kevin.
You think a lot of Mormon history would be different if they were simply allowed to drink coffee?
I think maybe they have better luck keeping their stories straight, because it fascinates me seeing the Orwellian way it changes. And
it's like everyone has their own fanfic.
Not the first time it's been called fanfic. Yeah, absolutely.
So eventually down the road, after all this nonsense that's been happening, and they're trying to get the political power to go into war against the U.S. government, it's not working. What happens to Joseph Smith? What happens to the man?
So by this time, Joseph Smith, he's so off the rail. And in fact, it was polygamy that really did him in at the end, because when he came forward and admitted that polygamy was a thing, the church freaked out, rightfully, because A, they'd been denying it for so long, and B, people were horrified by it, but it would split the leadership down the middle, because half of them not only were in favor of it, they were already practicing it and had been for years. But the head of the anti-polygamist group, which ironically enough was the guy that Joseph's wife Emma had a crush on, and we think they might have been on their way to like doing some kind of throuple or quadruple relationship. He was so offended by polygamy, despite all that he created a new newspaper called The Expositor, and their first episode, their first issue rather, was just this massive expose of everything that he was calling out Joseph Smith on. And he was still a Mormon. He was still a believer. He still believed that Joseph Smith was a prophet. He just thought he was a fallen prophet. So the nuances in this are really fascinating. And nonetheless, he did not pull any punches. He's totally lambasted Joseph Smith for all the things that they were doing behind the scenes. And Joseph Smith liked that so little that he took by this time he had his posse, his secret police, his enforcers, and they went in, destroyed the offices of the Expositor, and burned the printing press. And of all the things he had done up to that point, nothing riled the American people like that. He was charged for treason for that, for destroying the free press.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, boy, it's wild to think how much the press was respected to that degree, even though the press was like, yellow journalism for sure.
That's how cancel culture was started.
Yeah, I was going to say they still respected enough that no, you don't destroy printing presses in America. Yeah.
I was going to say Joseph Smith was also on thin ice, if I recall correctly, with like a whole bunch of anyone outside of Mormon.
Oh, for sure. And like things were trouble was already boiling. They'd had financial scandals. They'd had criminal scandals. I
just love like the guy who's having an affair with his Joseph Smith's wife.
No, he wasn't having an affair, but we suspect that they were in talks about having an affair. We have no evidence they actually did have an affair.
So he's kind of okay with having an affair with Joseph Smith's wife, but polygamy, that's a step too far.
I'll just say that Emma Smith was in favor of having an affair with this guy, apparently. Yeah, apparently, at least she said to Joseph, if you're going to have her, I'm going to have him. Something along those lines, or so we're told.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he gets in trouble and he destroys the printing press, and now he's on thin ice.
It's super thin ice, so much so that he has to flee because the government is actually coming to get him, to arrest him for treason.
Wow.
And when he finally flees, one of the interesting thing is that Emma writes him a letter, because he's in hideout in hiding houses and things like that. Sends him a letter secretly, and it says, "You always told us that when trouble came, you would stick by us, and now trouble's coming, you're the first to run." And she shamed him so much that he turned around and came back.
Wow.
And I think part of it is he knew the jig was up, and he couldn't avoid. If he fled, that would have been the end. But if he came back, maybe he could finagle it, because the guy had 9 lives. There was more than once that he was like on the edge of, we're going to shoot you in the morning by firing squad. That that situation, and he managed to finagle his way out of all his legal troubles one way or another, by hook or by crook, every time. But that last final time, it wasn't going to happen, because there was huge mobs of anti-Mormons, because you have to remember, this is after the Mormons already fought a war against their neighbors in Kansas and Missouri.
Not popular already.
Bloody war, just brutal on both sides. That's another sad thing about that, is there's really no good heroes in the story of early Mormonism, either inside or outside of Mormonism. But where was I going with it? Sorry.
Well, did the average Mormon know about this massacre and this war they were having?
Oh yeah. Oh, they lived through it. They suffered it. They died for it. And in those travels from place to place, more Mormons died along the way. It's just the amount of persecution and amount of suffering they did is just astounding. And it really goes to show you how, for religion, one of the things you need to be a successful religion a lot of times is to have that kind of persecution, because it galvanizes you. It's like, tempering steel. It's like everything that comes from outside forces you to rely on each other so much more. And there's been religious scholars who argue that if a religion doesn't have, an X amount of persecution in the beginning, not so much that they wipe them out like the Cathars, but just enough that it becomes more cohesive. And Mormonism is a perfect example of that. And again, it blows my mind that people didn't just leave in droves. Well, fun fact, they did leave in droves, but even more of them stayed. That's the thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess if you don't have any persecution, then you just make it up, right? And
Well, then it's too easy, and then it becomes more like a hobby, and you don't take it seriously enough, and the next passing fancy will pull you away. That seems to be the case. But once you start investing in it, do you guys remember a couple of years ago, in, like, I want to say 2013, 2011, Harold Camping, when he was talking about the end of the world?
Oh,
and
yeah.
people gave his radio show $60 million worth, and they were selling everything they owned because this guy was telling him, oh no, it's happening this time, end of the world, this day. And the day came and went, and he's like, oops. All of his followers were out. And we see this in apocalyptic movements throughout history too. It's like religions will say, up, doomsday's coming. Doomsday comes and goes, and then you lose some, but the ones that stay, they double down because they're invested in this so much they can't afford to give it up anymore. We see that like Jehovah's Witnesses a lot. We see that with, like Seventh-day Adventists, the Millerites. Some of those religions came out of doomsday cults like that.
Yeah, it's almost like on the political side of things, it sounds like the Q conspiracy.
Yeah.
They double down, right? It's like nothing has happened at all, but they still double down on it.
You're exactly right. And Q's another perfect example of a religious founder figure who's completely imaginary. Unless you count those two guys on Reddit in the Philippines who seem to have concocted him. But I mean, they can't even agree on who Q is. No. So it's very apt analogy. Just the way that you just float all these crazy conspiracies until something sticks, and that'll become dogma. And hopefully Q won't become the next Mormonism or Scientology, but
Okay,
so, like it.
So we left off with Joseph Smith kind of turning himself in.
Thank you for keeping us on track, because again, we're in danger at every point.
This is admittedly, I am kind of a morbid person, so this kind of is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. So he gets arrested, gets taken to Carthage, where they're surrounded by anti-Mormon forces who hate them. And so Joseph is in jail, smoking cigars and drinking wine, fun fact, with his brother and two other Mormon leaders, or not really leaders, but trusted figures. And they hear what they think is their own Mormon legion coming to rescue them, but it's not. It's the legion from the nearby the Warsaw Dragoons, who are coming to kill Joseph Smith. And his guards, who are there to protect him, to keep this from happening, they fire their shots. They're firing blanks, and they're firing over their heads. And we're out. We did what we could. Oh no! And then they let the guys come in, and not only did Joseph have cigars and wine, he also had smuggled in 2 pistols. And in Utah, you can actually see the 2 pistols that he had. Even though that part of the story doesn't make it to his martyr story very often. They treat him very Jesus-y and don't ignore the fact that he shot at 3 guys before they came in and took him out.
So he's in jail and he just walked in and shot him? Is that it?
What's that?
He's in jail and he just walked in and shot him?
He's in jail. They went upstairs where he was. He wasn't actually in the cell. He was in kind of a nicer quarters. They tried to barricade the door. Shots came through, killed his brother instantly, almost right off the bat. The other 2 guys with him only had hickory walking sticks. And they were trying to, as people were like poking their barrels of their guns through the door and the wall, they were trying to beat them down. And finally, one guy got shot. Another guy got trapped behind the door, came out of the whole thing unharmed completely. But they ran in shooting at Joseph. He went to the window, gave this Masonic cry of distress to see if any Masons would help him. And they did not. And got shot and fell down. And we don't know exactly what happened, but it's open question whether he was still alive or not. But he wasn't alive 5 minutes later when they left him.
So I'm kind of curious about the Masonic Cry of Distress. What is that? They just went to the window and said, help!
It's let me see. It's something like, is there no help for the carpenter's son? Something equally old-timey and goofy like that. Joseph Smith was really big on Freemasonry, and Freemasonry was just a lot bigger deal back then anyway. But he actually, it's funny because he not only became a Mason, but he set it up in such a way that his Masonic lodge, he was in charge of it, and he instantly became like the grand poobah of this Masonic order, like overnight. Even though it takes years and years, I guess, to go up the ranks and everything. And in the temple rituals, even today, there's still Masonic elements. Even in the magic underwear, the sacred symbols in the magic underwear are Masonic symbols.
Wow.
And that's poor Mormons. Increasingly all this stuff was secret, but increasingly their critics revealed all this. And like now we know the whole temple ceremony. We know how they've changed it to keep up with times and make it less sexist and racist and horrible. And
so does that mean that the Mormons are the Illuminati?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I've said it, therefore it exists.
There you go. There you go.
They're not Jewish enough for that. They're not. You got to be more Jewish. That's the thing.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wish HBO would do a thing on early Mormonism is because I would love to see them do like the story of Joseph Smith and the story of the story that Joseph Smith is weaving and how it changes and back and forth, and the high fantasy parts of that would be amazing.
It'd be fun.
Since you're gonna have some contacts in Hollywood soon, you should take care of that.
Right?
Yeah.
It has to be done, and you have to have ex-Mormons do it, because if Mormons do it, they would just refuse to show it. But ex-Mormons, they know where the skeletons are buried. Yeah.
So Joseph is now dead. He's been shot.
Joseph's dead. Yeah.
So what happens to his body after that?
What does happen to his body? I know they made a death mask of him. I think that's a great question. I'm sure Bryce could tell you off the.
He ascended into somewhere, heaven, right?
What's that?
He ascended. Right?
Honestly, I don't think the Mormons have any kind of tradition of that. They just talk about how he went to his martyrdom just like Jesus did, and he was full of love and blah 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 blah.
Missed opportunity. Could have come back to life, and too bad.
Another fun fact: Twilight. If you've read Twilight turns out to be. Let me see if I can get the story right. Fan fiction for 50 Shades of Grey, or is it the other way around?
Other way around. 50 Shades of Grey was fan fiction of Twilight.
But Twilight, who was written by a Mormon, critics have noted that there's all these Mormon tropes in it, down to her liking to clean the house and play baseball with her family. And when you look at the movies, the head vampire guy is clearly based on Joseph Smith. It looks just like one of his paintings came to life. You know.
Oh, really?
Oh wow, that's
And
crazy.
he's shining and he's fair and delightsome and all that. It's funny how much Mormonism is steeped in that. Same thing with the original Battlestar Galactica. That was also written by a Mormon, and it was originally done to be Bible stories in space. That's why you have Commander Adama, Adam, and you know, yeah, exactly.
I gotta go back and watch that now.
Yeah,
that's crazy. All right.
Oh man, David, thank you so much for explaining to us.
Oh, you know what? And I apologize that we just scratched the surface, barely tipped the iceberg. I mean, there's just here's the book. There's more to be seen in this book. Not only just the story, which is crazy, but the scandals that have come out since. Their wild archaeology, their wild afterlife scheme, which is just so Dungeons and Dragons and Scientology and steampunk all rolled into one. It's amazing.
That just gives us an excuse to bring you back on the show and discuss this.
There you go.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, if people want to find out more about you and your books, where can they find you?
I've got a website now, davidfitzgerald.org, and I try to keep it updated with all the new things that are happening. As you mentioned, I got a science fiction trilogy that's out and working on sex and violence in the Bible. And I think I'm going to be calling the other one Evolution of World Religions. And it's just going to be a little book. We'll see. I've said that before, but we'll see if it turns out to be just a little book.
And he also has a Patreon page. Go on Patreon and support his work.
Yes, please do. And if you like these books, feel free to order them from your independent bookstore, your local independent bookstore, because we need them. They're great. But if you have to buy it off Amazon, actually, you don't have to buy it off Amazon. Buy it from independent bookstores online or through the mail. But if you want to leave a review on Amazon for any of these books that you like, that's also very appreciated. And if you do want to join my Patreon, I'm publishing things on that Patreon page that are harder to find elsewhere. And I'm going to be doing more of that this year as well. So,
excellent. David, before I let you go, as usual, I gotta have you say, hi, this is David Fitzgerald, and I took a left at the valley.
Hi, this is Dave Fitzgerald, and you've turned left at the valley.
That works too. And that was our friend David Fitzgerald. It's always fun to have David on. Yes. So much knowledge. And you know what? This was a very brief introduction, I guess, into the history of Mormonism.
So tiny. So tiny.
Yes, like literally a drop.
Very little in there, and but there's so much to explore, and we'll have to do a bigger dive into something like that for sure. And I always love having David on. David is so easy to talk to, and he's so good at explaining to stupid people like myself about very complicated subjects. And I love David to death for that. So what do you guys think about Mormonism? You think it's the real faith? You think they got something going on there, or is it just bullshit?
I still laugh at them.
I'm sorry.
I'm still not over this Uma Thurman thing in the hat there. It's like,
Did you get what the Uma Thurman thing is? Because it's a rock that has a circle in the middle of it.
It's a crystal type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a magic rock.
If at least they had the actress in the hat, I would kind of be, hey.
Right, that'd be something cool.
I'm looking at a rock in the hat. That's even worse than I thought.
Little tiny Uma Thurman, just like, check it out. Here's what it is.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, I'd be kind of in for that, right? I think that'd be kind of cool. But anyway, so I guess it's pretty much crap. So, thank you so much for our guest David Fitzgerald to be on the show, and thank you to my co-hosts Sabrina Hertzy and Brett Lee and Benjamin in Thought, and thank you for listening. You can find us at leftatvalley.ca. You can send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com. You can find us on Twitter at LATV Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, /LATV, .com, whatever it is, /LATV.
/left at the valley.
Sorry, left at the valley, not /LATV. That's for something else.
We should change that too, just to clear
on
up
Twitter at LATV Podcast.
That's
yeah,
right.
at Twitter.
Give us a
LATV
5-star
podcast.
review where you find us. It helps us and helps others find the show. And you can also help us grow the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/LATV. That's the one.
That's the one.
All right, Brett Lee, what do you got coming up on Unapologetics there, buddy?
Yeah, so
we never know what's coming up on Unapologetic.
yeah, it's always last second because we just grab the latest clips of the day, and and watch some clips and have fun hanging out on the Unapologetics panel stream on YouTube. You can just search for that, and we also have the audio podcast going now. So it's the Unapologetics podcast on any Stitcher or SoundCloud or anything like that. So check it out; it's good.
Coming up next week, we have Hersey brings us Nick Fish. That should be interesting. Wow. And after that, we'll have our returning champion, Dr. Ben Davis. We'll be talking about documentaries and what the hell happened to them. We'll have Valerie Tarico. We'll be talking about wokeness, and we'll also be recording with the Free Prophets. That'll be us as guests on their show. We'll have Gerald Posner talk about God's banker. I should be talking about the Vatican's bank. That should be very interesting. And we'll have Kathleen and Aubrey, an atheist and a Christian. They're podcasters. And somewhere down the pipe, we'll have Seth Andrews and Eli Bosnick as well coming out to visit us.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
lot going on.
Always lots going on in our world.
Exactly. Anything else I need to add?
Always have a great week.
Sounds good to me. Until next time.
Something to be ashamed